This year, I made a big pivot in my part-time flower farm business. After 2 years of selling primarily to wholesale florists that were doing design work, I made a decision to not sell to designers through a cooperative and instead focus on rebuilding my retail channel. And so what that means is that instead of focusing on selling wholesale to florists, I would be focusing on selling direct to consumers. In this video, I want to talk about the business guiding fundamentals and strategies that helped shape where I got to today. So you guys will hear about a progress update as to where I am in this journey, but I really want to focus on certain of the business fundamentals and strategies that guided me. They served as my North Star and they are applicable across all businesses and not just flower farming. I don't really hear about this type of stuff discussed in other type of flower farming videos focused on profitability and building a business. So I thought this would be a really good topic, not just for those who are starting out, but even for those who are a little bit more established and perhaps want a little bit more direction and clarity as to whether or not there are certain types of channels that they should be a little bit more laser focused on. So if you're new to my channel, my name is Jessie. I am in my 4th year of flower farming, and my videos typically focus on the business side of things. The luxury or the wisdom that comes from being a year 4 flower farmer is the fact that I understand what I want from this business. In year 1, everyone is always so excited and the goal is to grow as many flowers as possible. I can tell you that is not my goal in year 4. In year 4, I've understood my limits and what brings me joy in this business, because it is very different harvesting for 8 or 12 bouquets versus for 20 or 50 bouquets. All of us have different types of lifestyles, different full-time jobs, different circumstances at home that might make it really difficult for us to focus on a really high volume business. One of the goals is to make sure that I am still happy with what I am doing, because I don't need to be doing this. So if I'm going to be spending my time, it needs to be for me and it needs to be something that I feel is sustainable. So let's actually jump right into that, because as we are rebuilding our retail channel, there were 3 things that absolutely needed to align with certain criteria, I'll call it. So the first is that it needs to align with our schedule, whatever retail channel we're choosing. I say our schedule because Eric, even though he does the manual labor on the farm in the form of driving the tractor, bringing compost and helping with odds and ends, he also primarily helps me deliver my flowers now. Most days when flower drop off happens, I am in meetings, so Eric is the one who goes around and delivers those flowers. So it has to work with either both of our schedules or one of our schedules. And what I mean by that is, are there places where we go to on a weekly basis that we could partner with? Is the place that if we partner with and we don't go to on a weekly basis close enough that it's not completely out of Eric's schedule? We recently got a K truck. The K truck is road rated, but it's not a type of vehicle I want to drive long distances. So there is this informal parameter around, can the K truck get Eric there to deliver the flowers? And if it can't, then the distance is too far. So yes, Eric has been delivering the flowers in the K truck, and it's a way of us not needing to fire up our cars for a short drive. The second thing that a retail channel needs to align with is my work schedule. So my full-time job provides for this family. Eric is a realtor, so we do have some income from there. But more importantly, my work is the one that provides the healthcare benefits. And of course, healthcare is really important for us, because the main reason why we decided to stop selling wholesale was because of wanting to spend a little bit more time at home and just being closer because of all the stuff that we had gone through with cancer treatment for my young daughter last year. My work has been a lot more busy this year. I took on a little bit more of a leadership position, so I am always usually in the office on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. There's a little bit more travel now. Sometimes that just means going to New York City for a full day, but sometimes it also means getting on a plane. So the channel that I choose does need to hit criteria number 3, which is be flexible enough to accommodate a relatively predictable, but sometimes unpredictable schedule. I have a really good flower friend. You guys all know her if you guys have been following me. Her name is Jordan. She's a consultant, so she's always traveling. And that's like a very different level of flexibility that her retail channel strategy needs to be able to accommodate. And she and I have different retail channel strategies partially because of that too. So I really want to make it clear that this is like a choose your own adventure type of thing, especially if you're just starting out. If you don't know where to go, hopefully what I talk about here is going to help provide you a little bit of direction into how you can make these channels work for you versus having your life fit into the flower farm. Let's dig into retail channels. There are so many ways that we could be selling directly to customers. We could be doing it at a farmer's market, a roadside stand next to your house, a flower subscription. We could be partnering with businesses selling at their storefront. So they provide that brick and mortar storefront. We provide the flowers, they sell it. We could be doing pop-up and bouquet bars with those store owners too. So those are 6 different ways that we could sell retail. There are also a bunch of other ways that I haven't talked about, but those are usually the more popular ones. Today, I'm only going to be focusing on a retail partnership through the form of selling at their store, flower subscriptions, and then bouquet bar pop-ups. So the reason why I'm not going to be talking about farmers markets and a roadside stand is because in year 1, I sold at a farmer's market. I realized very quickly it just wasn't for me. It wasn't a type of commitment that I wanted every single weekend or every other weekend to be at a specific location. I think I probably moved more bouquets in a single market than I do using my current type of retail strategy mix. But again, it doesn't align to the principles that I talked about earlier for my family's lifestyle. And the second thing with the roadside stand is that my property is just not set up to be able to do a roadside stand. I would love to do a roadside stand because I think it's so flexible. It's so much easier in terms of the amount of logistical effort, but our house just isn't set up for it. Let's dive into retail partnerships. This is defined as me selling bouquets at a brick and mortar location because I don't have a location to sell at. You would partner with another location if they have the same types of customers who they attract on an ongoing basis that are also interested in flowers. You could also partner with them if they are just more of an established business than you, and so they're going to provide some additional traffic that you normally wouldn't get, do their own type of marketing in a way that you can't do because they have an established customer base. Now, there are typically 2 ways of selling through a retail store. You can sell on consignment, which means that you own the product until it is sold. If it is not sold, you bear 100% of the ownership, so you take a loss. Or you can also sell the flowers to the shop at a wholesale price, and then that shop resells it for a bit of a higher margin than at consignment. But if they don't sell it, then they take the loss on that bouquet. Now, I think a lot of people I typically hear recommend going that latter process, which is you sell to the shop at a wholesale price. I have chosen to continue using the consignment route. So I give 20% of the proceeds to the shop, and in return, the shop handles everything. Basically, I drop the flowers off, the shop handles point of sale, collecting the money, collecting state tax, paying that state tax. I don't deal with any of that. That is not necessarily the reason why I do consignment. One of the things that is often under talked about for consignment is a level of control that you have that is not the type of control that you might be thinking about. Because a lot of people think that, hey, if I partner with a store, they're obviously going to take care of the flowers more. There's going to be more control in terms of quality control standards, and I totally agree with that. But what I want to avoid is a potential situation where I don't have control over things like pricing, over discounting. So if a store owns the product and it's not moving, they're obviously going to try to move it in different ways through promotions. If the flowers are a little bit wilty and they don't want to take a loss on it, they might severely discount it and still try to move it. And at the end of the day, the flowers are still tied back to me. So I want to make sure that I can preserve a certain price point that my farm is consistently selling at, as well as a type of quality level. Now, the retail partner that I work with right now, they're pretty good. And I don't think that either of those 2 types of things would be breached if we moved away from a consignment model, but what we're doing right now works. And in order to sell successfully on a consignment model, you do have to understand how many bouquets are going to move on a daily or weekly basis. You don't want to overbring the number of bouquets or else you are going to take a loss. We're now in year 2.5 of selling with the store, so things are going well enough where I don't want to change it. Now, here's the thing. The store that I'm currently selling at is an education farm. High traffic, wrong type of traffic, but it's totally fine because this place is a few minutes away from my house. I do have customers that I have that personally go to that shop. And I will say that the majority of the flowers that they move there are actually driven by me. So there is definitely a bit of marketing lift. This weekend, I am actually testing another new retail outlet, which is in the opposite direction, about 8 minutes away. And this is a place where we started buying a lot more of our meats from. It is a pretty well-established family farm. They farm on like 500 acres. They do pasture-raised beef, free-range chickens, and a whole lot of stuff. So my method is I drop off a bucket of flowers. I say, here's a free bucket of flowers. Let's see how they move. If you sell all of these flowers, the money is yours. And if you don't sell them, that's our answer. This is probably not going to be a partnership because I'm also going to have to do marketing to drive people to sell those flowers. So we'll see how that goes. But clearly you can see that I like having a retail partnership type of channel because it does allow for a good level of flexibility. If I have flowers, I have flowers. If I don't, I don't. So it's kind of like a farmer's market where you bring what you have, except I don't have to pay for a booth fee. I don't have to show up for 6 hours, and I don't have to set up and tear down. The one last remark I'll make about this channel is the fact that nowadays I'm always looking for a place with some AC because the first retail location I sell at does not have AC, so it does reduce the shelf life and it makes it a lot more imperative that I do know how flowers flow on certain days. I had to switch spots because it started getting really sunny and my computer was overheating. But I'm really excited to talk about this next channel. And before I do, I want to talk about 3 really important core business concepts that flower farmers should be thinking about. The first is that your top customers typically make the bulk of your revenue. True for any type of business. I've done this analysis in other videos on my Patreons showing that like my top 5 customers contribute to close to 70% of my revenue. My best customers have spent at least $1,000, if not sometimes like $2,000 in the short time that I've been a flower farmer without even focusing on the retail side of the business. So really goes to show you the power of a few individuals. And oftentimes we neglect to think about how we keep those top customers coming back. The second principle is a concept called lifetime value. This is a metric that is really important in the e-commerce world. If you use a website like Shopify, it will actually tell you what the lifetime value is. And simply put, it is the amount that someone spends with your business over their lifetime versus what they spend on individual purchases. So the intent here is to think about how do I maximize how much they're going to spend throughout however long it is they're going to do business with me, instead of trying to maximize individual purchases. So for example, a one-time customer, if they buy a $25 bouquet, their lifetime value is $25. If I have a CSA customer joining for the first time, has never bought from me but signed up for my CSA, their lifetime value automatically goes up to $125 because I'm selling 5 bouquets. If you have multiple CSAs and you have that same customer signing up, let's say twice, like now you're at $250. So you can see where I'm going with this and the channel I'm going to talk about next. But the third principle here is this concept of reducing churn, which is how do I prevent customers from not buying from me again? Meaning like how do I get customers to come back, AKA repeat purchases in the world of e-commerce? Again, another metric that a lot of analytics platforms can show you if you have that data. So what channel ticks all 3 of those principles in addressing them? Flower subscriptions, AKA CSAs or community supported agriculture. That is a model that is often used in the vegetable farming world, and it's used a little bit differently because that is really to help pay for all of the stuff that the farmer needs up front in the beginning of the season, to give them that cash injection so that they can buy tools, seeds, whatever it is, pay for labor. And then everyone gets to reap the rewards, as well as take in the risk if there's a flood, if there's a drought and there's not a great crop. A community supported agriculture model allows people who are the customers to take a share in the risk, but also the benefit if things go really well. A flower subscription is different because it's more of the types of subscriptions that customers typically see, which is you commit to a certain amount of bouquets over a period of time, and you're willing to pay for that either upfront or on a recurring basis. I choose to take that payment upfront, even though things like Squarespace and Shopify nowadays allow for those installed payments. It's just not something that I found I've had to do yet, at least because I have a relatively small CSA base. So I say all of this because CSAs are one of those things where there is a bit of admin work. Sometimes there's a bit of headache. Sometimes people get a little bit emotional over it, especially if customers don't fully understand the fine print. I personally run a relatively flexible CSA. Again, I don't have a ton of members, and that allows me to allow for a little bit more flexible pickup. If someone can't pick up from 2 to 6 but needs to pick up at 1:30, totally fine. If someone is I've got a few nurses on my list. They're like, I've got an evening shift tonight. I can't make it. Can I come tomorrow morning? Totally fine. I'm usually here. I'm flexible enough to accommodate that. But if your CSA list is like 50, 100 people, that becomes really difficult to juggle. So typically a lot of people shy away from a flower subscription because of those headaches that they wouldn't have through other channels. But because of these business principles that I talked about, I said, fundamentally, this is the smart thing to do. And is there a way that I could make it work for me where I feel like it's not too much of a hassle? And so what I did was I started looking, well, how many shares would I need to sell in order for this to be worth my time? And I came up with 8. So again, my bouquets are priced at $25. So 8 means that I'm getting in about $200 of revenue for every single pickup. And ultimately, I ended up selling 15 shares. Originally, I sold 14 shares and then got an extra one, which I'll talk about how I got that later. But it's been working out really well. So at 15 shares, you're talking about $325 in revenue every single pickup. My bouquets on average are profiting about $10 each. I've only had 2 bouquet pickups so far, June and July. And I'll say that I've really forced myself to look at the cost side of things so that I could really back into what my bouquet profitability look like now that I'm selling retail this year and going forward. I'm really focused on that. And that exercise has been really important for me because my issue with the typical way that we price things, which is you assign a per value per stem, is yes, I should be making a profit, I'm being told, but I have no idea how much that profit is. So if you want all the nitty-gritty breakdown, it is on my Patreon. Every month when I have a CSA flower subscription, I put down the breakdown of that bouquet, put down the assumptions around the cost of growing, harvesting, so forth, so you can see how I got to that $10 number. Perhaps that could also help you too if that's something you're looking for. So here's a link to my Patreon, $5 a month or $48 a year for hopefully what is considered very invaluable information that's not out there. But anyway, so I have a 15 share CSA, and the way that it works for me is it cannot be every week or every other week. That is just way too much mental and physical effort for me. So I basically made it once a month with the exception of July, early August, because I have so much Lysianthus coming in. It is such a great premium flower that I want my customers to get 2 rounds of that. There are 2 subscriptions that are within 2 weeks of each other, but everything else is like 3 to 4 weeks apart. So I call it Flower of the Month Bouquet subscription. I find that cadence makes a huge difference in my motivation in wanting to do a CSA. So far, it's also been so good that I do plan on potentially opening another CSA next year where everyone would still potentially be on a monthly schedule, but I would rotate. So every 2 weeks, I would have different customers picking up. That brings me to the third and final channel I want to talk about that is starting to form the backbone of my retail channel strategy, and that is pop-ups or bouquet bars. I have hosted 2 before, And they were really great, not just from a marketing standpoint, but from a moving a bolus or an abundance of flowers standpoint. So one of the things coming into year 4 was, one, I really didn't know if E was going to be in remission until late April, so therefore I didn't really plant a lot for spring, and I honestly just also wanted a little bit of time off. So it was really great for us to take that early and even going into like mid-spring off. My flower farming season didn't really ramp up until later June when most of the perennials came in, and this year everything came in a little bit later because of the cool wet spring that we had. But I say this because I wasn't really sure how many flowers I would have this year. And so a pop-up is a really, really good way of moving flowers that you have that might be unexpected because they all came in at once, or because you just don't know how to forecast what you're going to have. So what I did was I started plotting out, okay, I have all of these flower subscription pickups. I anticipate the majority of my Lisianthus is going to come in on these weeks. Will I be able to move a premium flower at Lisianthus? You guys have heard me talk so much about this. My plugs this year were 94 cents each, add up labor and all that stuff. Like each stem, the cost of growing costs about $1.30 for me. So I absolutely need to move that crop specifically, or else I'm taking a pretty big loss. There's a difference between not moving something that's a perennial or something that you've self-seeded, like a sunflower, which is relatively low in price as a seed as well as labor, versus Lisianthus, which I've paid a lot in plugs. I'm spending a lot of time to weed and labor. I need to baby it. You get the point. So hence why I've already had an on-farm bouquet bar, as well as I am doing another bouquet bar this upcoming week with the sole purpose of focusing Lisianthus. Now, the on-farm event that I had, I want to talk a little bit about this. So again, my property is not structured to handle a ton of people, but with all of the additions that we've done in terms of the pole barn, as well as the paving that we've done, I could have 6 or 7 people park and back out and not get into an accident. So what I did was I sold tickets for time slots on my website, and I ended up selling out. So we had a group of people who came, and it was awesome because they were all neighbors. Some of them were prior CSA members. One of them shared that she had unfortunately lost her job this year, which is why she didn't resubscribe, but she felt that the on-farm experience was like too good to pass up, especially for her younger daughter who is now getting into growing. So she brought her daughter. Anyway, the reason why I want to bring this on-farm event up is because I'm looking at bouquet bars with a different light. For the first couple of years when I did them, I was looking at them as, okay, like here's marketing exposure, here's meeting new business partners potentially, but really just getting the word out about my farm. And this year, I'm a lot more what we call lower funnel focus. So I'm a marketer, so I think about this marketing funnel, which is you've got the awareness piece, you've got then the people who are aware of your brand and your flower farm, understanding, okay, like she sells flowers, so next time I want flowers, I might consider buying from their flower farm. And then at the very bottom, you've got them pulling the trigger, buying the flowers. I'm now laser focused into what I call that mid-lower funnel part of the customer journey, we'll call it. And what that means is, how do I convert people to my flower subscription? So I actually did that with my on-farm bouquet bar, and I actually didn't have a lot of people to convert. I had a total of, I'll call it 2 people to convert, because there were 5 parties that showed up. I don't count 2 of them because they were my prior coworkers and they came from really far away. So like they're not going to come down and pick up flowers. One of them lost her job, as I mentioned. There were other people who they brought who were their daughters, who are just not in a disposable income type of spending position to buy a flower subscription CSA. So it really left me with 2 people. And what I did was I made an offer that if you really liked flowers, I felt like you couldn't refuse. I said I would put the price that you paid for this bouquet at the bouquet bar towards your subscription. The bouquet bar was actually only $20 because I was trying to incentivize people to buy an online ticket instead of walk-in. So I said, I'll put $20 towards your $125 subscription, which means basically you get this bouquet for free. And I have on my Patreon how I did that, but I had 1 person convert. And the reason why this is so powerful is because if you want to convert someone from a small ticket item to a bigger ticket item, you want to do it at a time when they've just purchased that smaller ticket item and they feel they feel the benefits from that. Like they had a super great experience on farm. They really loved making the bouquet. They're really proud of the bouquet. They love the flower. That's the time to make that offer. So we had one extra person convert, and what I do with my CSA or flower subscriptions is I offer a flexible end of the season pickup date where if you cannot pick up on one of those days, you can pick up on a later day, and it's like sometime in early October. So that person automatically gets a bouquet during that last October date. And that is the strategy I'm going to go into for the bouquet bar that I'm hosting with a local business. It's the one that I've done before. It's a consignment shop. And if that goes really well, I would consider talking to her about her being an on-site CSA pickup site. The reason why I haven't done that yet is because that is just a little bit out of the way. The K truck cannot drive there to drop off flowers. I think it's a little too far away from a safety point of view, but it is still close enough. It's on the way to work, so I could still make it work, but I do want to figure out what is that demand coming from that community, if they're willing to come pick up on farm, and if a few of them would be more likely to pick up at a site that is closer to their house, aka the consignment shop. The top question I get with bouquet bars is, how do you find partners? Really easy way. Go to a local town Facebook group and just put out a post saying, hey, I'm a local flower farm. I specialize in growing local specialty flowers, and I'm looking for local businesses to partner with for something like a pop-up. DM me if you're interested. And I did that, and I got a ton of inquiries in addition to wedding inquiries and all that stuff. So there was a lot of interest from that one post alone. I only posted in one local group. I'm pretty sure if I posted too many, it would get even more reach. And that one post also got me like an additional 30 followers on my Facebook page. I am definitely excited for next week's Bouquet bar event. I'm a little bit nervous because around 82 people have said they're interested. Now, obviously not all 82 people are going to come, but let's just say that like 30% comes, like 24 people. I have a lot of flowers. I don't have that many flowers because I also have a flower pickup then. So anyway, I think I'm gonna do a video if I have time on this, so you're gonna find out how it goes. Let's now wrap it all together with how rebuilding this retail channel strategy is going for me this year. I was in this situation where I'm sure many of you guys have been in. I had too much demand, not enough supply, meaning I had so many customers in the spring who wanted flowers, didn't have enough flowers to meet that. Then the tide shifts because the weather shifts automatically almost overnight. And all of a sudden I now have a supply problem. I have so many flowers, but not enough customers. So really that got my butt into gear to think about what was I gonna do about it. That's how I started planning the bouquet bars. That's how I started really thinking about additional retail channels. So I think I am at the state where I am pretty confident that flower subscriptions are gonna be a part of my model. The retail channels are gonna be a part of my model. And the bouquet bars are going to help plug those gaps where I have the extra abundance of flowers, or I want to potentially have a feeder into my flower subscription. But if I plan appropriately in terms of growing the right amount of flowers for the amount that I plan to move on a monthly basis with my flower subscriptions and the retail stores, then there is very little need for bouquet bars. So in other words, I don't expect myself to do a ton of bouquet bars. I expect to do it here and there to be able to readjust any type of supply demand problem. So this is an ongoing thing. Obviously, businesses continue to evolve with our needs. We now have this beautiful deer fence up that covers 2 acres instead of 40 by 90. We took off the deer fence that was surrounding the original 40 by 90. No deers have gotten in. I'm starting to see little critters eat some of my seedlings like my didiscus. So Eric and I have plans to revamp the growing space a little bit, but it really does open up a lot more space for perennials. So we're gonna put in things like peonies, probably roses. I've already put in things like astilbe, Solomon seal. So I'm trying to get to a state where, again, if I don't need to harvest everything, it's not the end of the world. I think that there's always going to be a world where I'm going to grow a ton of Lisianthus, and of course Lisianthus grows at a time when there's always the lowest amount of demand. So I always need to structure whatever retail channel I have around making sure I can move those Lisianthus. I honestly think that if it wasn't for Lisianthus, I probably would not be selling bouquets in late July, early August. But they are just such a special flower. I do feel like that once you get them, they are a joy to grow, and they do attract local customers when they normally wouldn't be buying flowers. So there are times where you don't have Lisianthus and it's really hard to move flowers. I find that when you have Lisianthus and if you're doing the proper marketing, you're going to be able to get that demand. Anyway, I will do a separate video on Lisianthus since I'm growing six different types of varieties this year in addition to a few others that I've had. So we're going to do a little bit more of a nerdy detailed video on my experience with Lisianthus, specifically on varieties, what I grow again, what I wouldn't, and all that good stuff. But in the meantime, if you need ideas on how to host a bouquet bar, including the logistics, pricing, how to set it up, I really recommend this video up here where I go into detail. It's recently gotten a lot more views and popularity, so definitely check that out if that's something you want to do, and I'll see you next video.